On a Monday afternoon, June 9th, in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, a young woman by the name of Linda Smith and her dog Sparkles were murdered. With the help of hair evidence and fiber analysis, a killer was found. Smith was spending the weekend in Seaside Heights with her father, Mr. Smith, when things took a turn for the worse. Mr. Smith was walking down an alleyway near the hotel when he discovered the body of his daughter, covered in blood, lying motionless on the ground. Her German Shepherd, Sparkles, was lying on the ground next to her, motionless as well.
All I wanted was to get a cup of coffee from Wawa. All of a sudden, I found my daughter and her dog lying dead on the ground. I already hated Mondays, but this made it a particularly bad one.
Police arrived on scene shortly after, under the direction of lead detective Steve Harvey. They searched all around the hotel and the alley where her body was found.
So when I arrived to the scene, I was looking for anything out of the ordinary, but soon after we found a knife, and that knife was used to kill Linda, as well as some hair and fibers on the ground near the bodies. We collected all the evidence and got ready to take it back to testing.
Evidence was taken back to the lab, where it was analyzed by Dr. Smitty Werber-Jagerman-Jensen, a leading expert in his field of forensic science.
When I looked at the hairs under a microscope, I compared them to known hair samples taken from the victim and dog. I quickly realized that they did not match the hairs found on the ground near the bodies.
Werber-Jagerman-Jensen examined the hairs, then to determine whether they came from a human or an animal. Maybe it could have just come from a stray dog or a cat in the alley, but this was not the case.
Animal and human hairs have very distinct characteristics. You can tell the differences between the two using a few key identifications. One major difference will be the cuticle scaling.
The scales that make up a hair's cuticle are found in different patterns.
The pattern I found on the unidentified hairs at the crime scene was imbricate, which led me to believe that they were human hairs. I confirmed this suspicion by examining the medulla of the hair.
The medulla is the innermost layer of the hair shaft. Not all hair has one, but different species could exhibit different patterns of the medulla.
This hair had a thinner medulla with no interruptions. This confirmed my suspicions that the hair was from a human.
So how could these little pieces of evidence help us track down a killer?
The DNA evidence that can't always be extracted from the hair evidence. For a successful profile to be made, the follicle of the hair must be present and intact. So at this crime scene, there were no follicles present. So no DNA could be extracted, which is a huge loss for us. And however, a basic genetic profile could be developed.
Analyzed the hair further under the microscope to see what physical traits he could find.
Samples can provide a general idea of what the suspect looks like. The sample found at the crime scene was a dark color and very wavy, which looked nothing like that of the victim. This will help police develop a picture of what their suspect looks like.
Police asked me who I thought could have done something like this to my Linda and her sweet dog, Sparkles. I couldn't think of anything at first. Then I remembered Linda's boyfriend, P. Sherman. They recently got into a big fight about something very serious, Sparkles' birthday party. Linda planned the party perfectly, but P just wanted to take over and have things his way.
Investigators turned their attention to Sherman after this information was given. There was no evidence of a criminal history or violent tendencies, but he was the only suspect the police had a lead on.
We picked Sherman up for questioning, but it turns out he had a solid alibi for the day of the murder. He was busy picking up cake for Sparkle's birthday. With multiple witnesses and video footage backing up his story, we couldn't put him away.
Investigators now had to turn back to square one for a new lead suspect. They asked Mr. Smith once again if there was anyone else he could think of that would hurt Linda.
The police asked me if I could think of anything suspicious that happened the day of Linda's death. Everything to me seemed normal that day, but looking back, I remember that we had visited a restaurant the night before, and the waiter seemed very suspicious. He seemed like the type of guy you wouldn't want to be left alone in a room with. I saw the way he looked at my Linda. I didn't like it, not one bit. But it made her uncomfortable, and as a matter of fact, it made me feel pretty uncomfortable too. Linda seemed creeped out by the guy, so when we finished our meal, we paid our bill and left as soon as possible. I don't even think we left a tip.
The waiter was named Boris McMuffin. McMuffin had numerous run-ins with the law throughout his youth, including a charge for aggravated assault at the age of 15, and being caught for attempted bank robbery at the age of 5. Police decided to bring him in for questioning, but without sufficient forensic evidence, they would not be able to pin the crime on him. Police obtained a warrant to gather a hair sample from McMuffin to be compared to the hair samples found at the crime scene.
When I compared the hair evidence from the crime scene to the hair samples taken from Boris McMuffin, I quickly realized that they were an almost perfect match. However, with no hair follicle present at the scene, it was impossible to confirm that the hair actually belonged to McMuffin.
Be needed to prove that McMuffin was guilty. Dr. Werwin Jaegerman Jensen turned to the cloth fibers found at the scene in hopes that they would reveal more about the killer.
When I analyzed the fibers from the crime scene, I came to the conclusion that they were wool fibers, and they likely came from a sweater.
Linda Smith was not wearing a sweater on the day she was killed, so was it possible that these fibers came from the killer themselves?
We obtained a warrant to search McMuffin's apartment and his car, and we searched his closet in his apartment. We found a gray sweater that could have potentially matched the fibers found at the crime scene. This would have broke the case wide open. But even if we had the matchmaking sweater and the matchmaking hair, it would have still been hard to have a valid case against McMuffin.
There was a breakthrough in the case. Investigators brought back the knife to look at it for fingerprints so that it could be matched up to the suspect.
Fingerprints lifted from the knife, and we got the fingerprints from McMuffin. So in order to compare them to see if they were the same, McMuffin's fingerprints were included in the automatic fingerprint identification system, or as we call it, AFIS, because he had already been convicted of prior crimes, and they were a match.
Based on the evidence presented to you, including the hair and fibers found at the crime scene, we believe that Boris McMuffin is the killer.
You don't know it was me. I wasn't even there. I have an alibi.
What is that alibi?
I was sitting at home by myself with no one around to corroborate my story.
I think you've said enough, Mr. McMuffin.
Nah, it wasn't me. I can't go back to jail.
It seemed clear what had happened. On the morning of June 9th, Linda Smith was taking her dog for a walk when she was trapped in an alleyway by Boris McMuffin. McMuffin was wearing a gray sweater and was wielding a knife. He lunged at Linda and stabbed her multiple times, leaving her on the ground where she soon bled to death. He then did the same to Sparkles, the dog. In the struggle with Linda, she managed to pull some of his hairs out, which were later collected by police and used as evidence against McMuffin. McMuffin attacked Linda because she had not left a tip for him after her meal at the restaurant he worked at the night before. With the addition of fingerprint evidence, the murder of Linda Smith had been solved. Boris McMuffin was arrested and found guilty of the murder of Linda Smith. He was sentenced to life in prison for his crime.